Good afternoon, everybody. We'll get started in just a second. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Nate Riley. I'm the Section Chief for Transportation at the PUC. And this is the second in a series of free towing training seminars that we're performing. Our last one was back on October 30th, where we covered things such as rules, rulemakings, legislative changes, statutory changes, things of that nature. The one we have today, hopefully you can all see the slideshow. We're going to be covering an administrative overview. So we're going to be talking a lot about, the process involved in obtaining a towing permit, how to navigate our website to get different forms and documents and resources that can help you in your business. Things such as, how to properly get insurance filed, workers' compensation, a lot of things in that area. We'll cover some of the forms, which will show you in real time how to get them from our website, how to use them. We'll describe in a little more detail the application process for towing carriers specifically, how to apply online, what the actual paper application form looks like, things of that nature. So, again, thank you all for being here. Just a few things before we get into the presentation. And yes, is going to be a presentation. So I just wanted to share with you all, just a couple of items that we wanted to cover. First off, like I said, there's going to be a presentation. So our primary concern is getting through that process. Again, just to eliminate the background noise and other distractions, it would be helpful if you could keep your cameras and microphones off for the most part. You can control this through the buttons at the bottom of the application if that's how you're participating today. If anybody is participating by telephone, you can mute and unmute by using *6. If you do have any questions at any point during the presentation, though, feel free to use the raise hand feature, which is available at the bottom of the Zoom platform. And also if you're attending by phone, I believe you can use *9 to raise or lower your hand. I should be able to see that. So if you raise your hand, if you have a question or want to intervene at some point, just feel free to do so. And I should be able to see it, and we'll get to you and whatever your question or whatever you want to say is as soon as possible. If you have more specific questions, you may want to wait until the end of the presentation to address them. We don't want to get sidetracked too much because we do want to get through this presentation, and we should have plenty of time afterwards to get to any questions and that you may have. But yeah, we'll wait for most of those questions unless it is more specific to what we're discussing or viewing on the screen at the time. Then feel free to jump in, but otherwise feel free to wait to the end. Also, if you've been cited by the PUC for any violations in the past for whatever reason, whatever the issue was, this isn't really the venue to discuss those more particular issues. You can always reach out to our investigations team at any time to discuss any concerns you have, and that's probably the more appropriate place to do that. Also, as just kind of a general point, please understand that the towing industry is subject to both regulations from the PUC and the Department of Revenue. We won't be discussing too much Department of Revenue aspects of the towing industry today, just based on what the topic and subject matter is for today's presentation. But just understand that there is that distinction. And then finally, just kind of to reiterate to everybody, there are 3 primary categories of tows that apply here in Colorado. So you have your consensual category, which is, your basic broke down on the side of the road, or somebody calls you to tow them from their house to a mechanic, something along those lines, where the vehicle owner or operator is essentially giving you permission to tow the vehicle at their request. We also have the non-consensual tows, which we also refer to as PPIs, private property impounds. And those are tows that originate from private property where a vehicle is there and it's not really supposed to be there, and the property owner or their agent is requesting that it be removed. And then finally, law enforcement ordered tows is our third category. So those are, I'd say for the most part, originating from public property. It's things such as post-accident, post-arrest, those types of situations typically fall in the law enforcement ordered tow category. And then furthermore, and we covered this a little bit in our last presentation back on October 30th, we have split the non-consensual PPI category essentially into two categories based on the legislation from last year, House Bill 2213-14. So we're now referring to those as residential PPIs and commercial PPIs. So again, they're just like they sound. Residential PPIs are ones that originate from more residential style private properties, whereas commercial is the opposite, the tows that are originating from more commercial style private properties. We may touch on that a little bit later on in the presentation, but yeah, just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into the presentation. Oh, sorry, there we go. Okay, so let's start off. We did cover this during the last presentation, and we're going to also cover it in the next presentation we have, which is actually on the, I believe it's December 8th is our next presentation. Yes, so our next presentation after this one is going to be on December 8th. It's also a Friday, also starts at 1 p.m. That one we're going to be covering complaints, investigations, and enforcement. So again, the last one on October 30th was rules and legislation. Today's is administrative overview. And then the one that's upcoming on December 8th is going to cover complaints, investigations, and enforcement. We may have a DOR representative participating in that, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so again, we did cover this in our last presentation. We'll cover it today. And again, we'll add it to the beginning of the next presentation as well. Just because it's good general information for everybody to have, which is our website. There's a lot of good resources here, a lot of good things you can use. You can see the hyperlink there at the top. It's puc.colorado.gov. That gets you to the main commission website for the Public Utilities Commission. So from there, you can see we have it circled there. You can easily get to transportation just by clicking on the little truck icon there where it says transportation, and that'll get you over to the specific transportation page. Before we do that, though, I just wanted to let you all know there are some good things here just on the main the main commission webpage that you want to be aware of. If you scroll down a little bit from what I'm showing right here, you'll see a couple different things. First off, you have the ability to watch any PUC hearings related to various proceedings. You can do that by scrolling down a little bit and clicking on the hearings webcast box. Some of you may be watching this presentation right now, having done it through that method. But yeah, they stream things like weekly commissioner meetings, public hearings for rulemakings, also more specific proceedings involving things like civil penalties or applications for various transportation authorities, things of that nature. So it is there and it is available for anybody to watch if you want. So just be aware that that is there. Scrolling down a little bit further, you'll also see the calendar also for the commission. So that it's the whole calendar for the entire division. So there's going to be things in there such as energy matters, telecom, gas pipeline, rail transit, and then also transportation. So you can always just poke your head in there periodically and kind of see what's coming up in commission business. And if you want to observe, that is available to you. All right, moving on. So again, when you click on the transportation button, this takes you to the main transportation page. So from here, again, a lot of good resources for all the different industries that we regulate. A recent addition that we had is we added all the different carrier types that we regulate, all the different industries, right here at the top of the page. So before you had to kind of scroll down and find the right industry and then click into it in some of the blue boxes a little further down the page. But now it's just right there at the top. You can click into the common carrier section, the contract carrier section, household goods, limited regulation, and towing carriers is there as well. So you can easily get to the carrier specific web page you're looking for just right there by clicking on those links. That'll take you right there. There's also some things that actually I'm going to get to on the next page here. So if you scroll down from here, and I have another image I'm going to share with you here. So if you scroll down a little bit, this is the rest of that page. So you can see right there at the top, there is some notices. So when important things happen at the commission, like we have a pretty significant rule change, or there's legislative changes, which results in statutory changes, things of that nature, we go ahead and usually make a note of it here. And we usually leave these notices up for a while when they come up, because it is important stuff that we want to draw everyone's attention to. It includes references to certain commission decisions, which you can, click on and explore. Also links to different legislation that did various things that impacts our transportation program. So just be aware that this is here. You may want to just periodically take a look and, see if there's anything new. Some of the ones we have up there right now are a little bit older. We have one there from 2021 and a couple from 2022. So, but just be aware that they are there, and we try to get the most important stuff up there just so that you're aware that certain business is happening or certain changes are occurring. So just be aware that is a good place to look on this main transportation page. The other things to look at are the different blue boxes at the bottom of the page. So you have your industry box there, which covers, it essentially does mostly the same thing as at the top of the page, where you can click into the different industry types. So that's the way you used to have to do it before, but now we also have it available in a quick link at the top. The other thing is at the very top of the industry tab, there is the ability to click into our online permitting program. So if you're, you can do it from here. You can also do it from, for towing carriers, you can do it within the towing website as well, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, it is available here if you want to apply for a new permit or renew your current permit that way. It's available in that first link there. The other, what I think is pretty important thing is the next box over, which is rules, laws, and decisions, especially the very first link where it says rules for transportation. That's where you can find all of our rules compiled into a single PDF document for transportation. So all the different transportation carriers that we regulate all have different rule sections in there that apply to them. And then there's some more communal rules that apply to all our different carriers as well. And they're all found within that document. So again, if you click on that rules for transportation, it'll take you to our most recent version of our current rules. So I always encourage people to, and carriers, to click on that link, download the PDF, and just keep it on your desktop. You just have it available. Because again, if you call us asking questions, things like that, it's pretty frequent that we're going to reference different rules that we're applying based on what your concerns or what your inquiry is about. So having that available so you can track exactly what we're telling you as it pertains to certain rules and how they're applied can definitely be helpful, and it can help those conversations go a lot more smoothly. There's also a record when you click on that link for rules for transportation of previous rulemakings. So you can see a record there in one of the drop downs on that webpage for different the most recent rulemaking proceedings that have occurred, and kind of a quick summary of what was changed, the date they were changed, when the rules became effective. All of those things are in there. So it's a helpful resource, and you can kind of see how things have evolved over the years as it pertains to our transportation rules. Another good thing here in the third blue box on the top is the report section. This is where we house our 60/20 report. 60/20 is one of our general rules that requires us to annually report to the commission, and we make available for public consumption here. Is just a lot of the transportation business that's occurred over the past year. So these reports are pretty in-depth. They're usually about, excuse me, they're usually about 50 pages long, give or take. And it includes a lot of good information, such as, the number of carriers that have applied in the past year, how many carriers permits have been revoked or suspended, how many CPANs we've issued, how many vehicles inspections we've done, how many investigations we've conducted, things of that nature are all in there. So it's a pretty robust report. And you can see we have 5 iterations. We've been doing it since 2019. And we do a new one every year. So if you want to take a look and kind of see what's there as it applies to your carrier or just our regulation of the transportation industry in general, that's available for you to look at. Few other things on here, but we'll go ahead and move on to the towing webpage now. Oh, sorry. Before we get to that, so like I said, the very first link in that industry page goes to the online application process. I'm sure most of you have probably seen this before, because I assume most of you have active permits. But this is what it looks like when you click on that button. And again, there's another link on the towing webpage we're going to observe here in just a minute. But you can see from this page, it's pretty clear. It's on the left and the right, depending on what you want to do. So if you need a new permit, so it's the first time you're coming in, or your permit has lapsed and you're coming back to the business after a while, you can select from that drop-down menu the permit type that you want to select. So in most of your cases, it's going to be towing that you'll select. And then that'll move you on to the next stages of the application, and you submit your information and whatever else the program's asking you for, and then you get your application filed. On the left side is where you renew your permit. So you have a current permit, and you're coming up. As you all know, they're year-long permits, so you got to renew them every year. And you're coming up. You've gotten your reminder, and you want to get ahead of things, and you go in there. You'll go ahead and type your current permit number into there and essentially do a search for your permit so that you can then, conduct whatever changes you want to make to it. The one thing I want to stress here is you can see in the example there in the text box that you want to make sure you include the dash in your permit number. So it's always T dash and then whatever your permit is. Maybe there's a 0 in there too before you actually get to any numbers. So just make sure you type it in exactly as it appears on your permit. So if it's T-01234, that's what you want to type in. So abbreviations don't really work. There are permits where it actually is T123, like there is no 0, because that's how it was issued, and that's fine. But again, just actually look at your permit issue letter and see what your permit is, and then that's going to be your best way to be able to pull it up through this mechanism. So just be aware of that. Okay, so moving on to the towing webpage. So again, I'll show you the bottom half of it, but this is what the top half of it looks like when you first get there. So we've kind of done some work over the past 18 months or so trying to kind of restructure the towing webpage, how it looks, make it a little more consumer friendly, things like that. So it looks a little different than it has in past years. But essentially we have obviously important business at the top, things like, obviously House Bill 2213-14 passing last year was a big deal, and it changed a lot of things. So we have that highlighted here at the top. We have some graphics that were put together by our public information officer that were put up here as well, just so people can kind of get a general understanding on what the bill did last year and how it's being applied and all of that. So again, that's usually the first thing you see when you log on to this towing website. But then you can scroll down and get to some other items. So scrolling down a little bit, you can see the bottom of that graphic that we just saw on the first page here at the very top of this. So it's everything that's below that. So you can see there's some additional references to the legislation that was passed last year that we just want people to be aware of, whether it's the towing carriers, stakeholders, consumers, whoever wants to know about it. There's different resources here. You can click to a copy of the bill if they want to actually read through it. The ability to file a complaint. So if there's a consumer poking around in here, they can just link right to our consumer affairs section where they can essentially file a complaint if that's what they want to do. We also have our most recent, this is something we just put up recently. We have our training presentation that we provided to towing and recovery professionals of Colorado, TRPC, back in May of this year. We actually had a more recent presentation, so we may add that here as well. But it's pretty public. These presentations are not a secret. We want people to be aware of the information we're putting out there. Our last seminar back on October 30th, we recorded that, and we're planning to put it up on the website. We'll probably put it on this website, right where you're looking right now. And then same thing with the seminar today, same thing with the one in December that we're going to do. We'll put them all up there. Just again, if people aren't here or not able to participate, they can still go in and watch the recording and see what all we covered and talked about, questions we had, answers we gave, all of that. So anyway, So, like I said, the buttons there on the right, you can apply online, you can purchase stamps. There's also the ability to view the most current tow rates. That's always where you want to look first, is that button right there that says tow rates. It's going to take you to, and I'll show you how to do this shortly after we jump out of the presentation for a minute to go kind of interact with the website and kind of show you how it works. We'll do that in a minute. But yeah, tow rates, you always want to look here first because of the new annual inflation adjustment mechanism that we have. So what's reflected in the rules isn't always what the current rate is. So you just want to make sure you know where to look to find the current rate. Same thing with the monthly fuel surcharges. There's a button for that as well. We'll look at that here shortly. And then also the towing task force. The towing task force, in case anybody isn't aware, is a primarily governor-appointed body. It's 14 members, 12 of which are governor-appointed, and they represent, each position represents a different community or interest group, and they all get together, typically on a monthly or so basis, to discuss maximum tow rates, specifically for non-consensual tows. And then they make recommendations to the PUC on what they think those should be or how the fee should work. So you can go ahead and go in there. All the meetings are posted. They're all recorded. They're all posted. They're all public. The report that was filed with the PUC last year in November, that a copy of that is there as well. Different minutes and agendas. A lot of good stuff on there. You can also see there's common forms. So a lot of the forms you may use as part of your towing business, depending on what type of operation you have. You can find there. Changes to your business. So if you're going to be updating, your company name or contact information, whatever you want to do, there are forms and stuff available here for you to do that. And then you file them with us, and we take care of whatever you need done. And again, like I said, there is that consumers box as well. If people want to file a complaint, if it's a consumer visiting a website, they have the ability to jump right to it from this webpage. So, actually going to go ahead and we're going to stop. I'm going to jump out of the presentation for a quick minute because we're actually going to go ahead and take a look at the website itself. So give me 1 second to kind of switch gears here, and we'll jump right into the website and kind of poke around a little bit. Okay, so let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit just so everybody can kind of see what we're doing here. Okay, I hope everybody can see everything okay. Okay, so again, you can get here just by puc.colorado.gov/towing. That's how if you want to get there that way. But yeah, again, at the top here of the webpage, you have all the different alerts and stuff, some infographics, which are more for consumers, but there's some good information for the towing carriers there as well. Our statutory authority here under 4010.1 is referenced here. Towing rules, again, this links to the towing rules or the rules in general that we have. So you can link there as well, or you can, as we discussed earlier, you can get it from the main transportation page as well. Different documents here about the new towing legislation that you can click to. Again, the TRPC training is here. You can apply online, purchase stamps. So one thing I wanted to show you here was the tow rates. So if you click into the tow rates, it takes you to a Google Drive. And what you have here is you always want to look for the most current towing rates. So it's the other ones are ones from previous time periods. But yeah, the one here is the current tow rates. And if you click on it, this is what it looks like. So it's a nice one pager. Well, it's actually 2 pages, but all the rates are on that first page there. So basically it breaks it out by the different charges that are regulated by us. So whether it's, private property impounds, non-consensual tows, or law enforcement ordered tows, we regulate the rates on all of those. So the most current rates are going to be here. Again, at the very top, it says exactly when they were effective. So once we get to the next annual inflation adjustment period, which is in March of this coming year, then we'll go ahead and retire this one. We'll cap it off on the applicable date range, and then we'll create a new sheet and we'll update the rates as necessary. So you can see here from the Google Drive here that you can click on previous time periods. So if you want to see how the rates have evolved over the years, you can go ahead and click on here and see what the adjustments look like. So we've hoped to make this as user-friendly as possible, both for the towing industry and for consumers to look at. So we hope we've accomplished that. But we're always open to feedback. So if you think we could do it a little better some way or another, please let us know, and we'll consider that. So going back to the page here, the monthly fuel surcharge. So this is something you always want to make sure you check at the beginning of the month, because it does change every month, as I'm sure most of you are aware. So again, it will factor in what the current surcharge is. And so essentially, what on top of the base rate you can charge. So for November here, we're looking at 80 cents above the whatever the base rate is. So considering the base rate is 380, we take 380 plus 80 takes you up to 460, and that's what you can charge per mile for non-consensual tows. So just be aware of that. Update, whatever you need to update on your end to reflect that at the beginning of every month. We try to get this out as soon as possible at the beginning of every month. So definitely keep an eye out for that. You can always give us a buzz if you have any questions about it, but this is pretty straightforward. And again, we do try to update this as soon as possible at the beginning of the month. And then, like I said, the towing task force, this is what the page looks like. So you see who the members are. You got all the meetings, different recordings, agenda minutes, the report from last year. It's all here. So if you're ever interested, you can take a look. So moving on to the common forms. So we have a couple things here that are helpful. So we have, for example, the annual vehicle inspection report. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this. It's essentially very much like the US DOT inspection. But yeah, this is a form you can use for doing your vehicle inspections. It meets all the criteria, so that's a good one for you to use. Towing charge notification form. So this is for drop fees. Now, obviously, with the legislation from last year, the drop fees associated with residential PPIs is no longer available. It's illegal now to assess that fee. But there is no restriction on commercial PPIs. So we still have this form available if that is the situation. Again, this does reflect the current rates. We update this when we update the other sheet. So these are the current drop rates. And you just essentially can print this off and then fill in all your own information down here in this section here. So you can type in your towing carrier name, your phone number, your permit number, your physical address, storage, and whoever's handing out this particular document. So if you assign these to a particular driver, who's handing them out, if a drop is the situation, then you can kind of fiddle with this a little bit. Another form that is pretty important is the authorized operator form. So this is a provision under Rule 6512F, I believe. So basically, what it is if a vehicle has been towed and is at your storage facility and somebody shows up to collect it, but there's no concrete, surefire way to tell whether or not they're the owner, this is a provision that can be used. We call it just the authorized operator form. It's basically the way that somebody through that rule can demonstrate that they have claim to the vehicle if they're able to meet the thresholds that are outlined in that rule. So the way it works is the person showing up and wanting to claim the vehicle, and pay the fees and get the vehicle released, they are required to present a valid driver's license and 2 of the 5 things that are on this list here. So what this document is essentially an attestation that they're making to you, the towing carrier, that they are a legitimate person to release the vehicle to. So the items are keys to the vehicle, proof of insurance, vehicle registration, VIN number, and a location, knowing the location where the vehicle was towed from. So if they can produce 2 of those items, so if somebody shows up, they have keys to the vehicle and they knew that you towed it from Home Depot, for example, then they fill this form out with their valid driver's license. And once it's completely filled out, now you're obligated to release it to them under that provision. So that's the way that form works. So it's always a good idea to have this on deck. Some of the more recent rule changes we're pursuing will actually, I believe, require you to provide this form to the individuals coming to collect their vehicles. But in general, I've always advised towing carriers to just print off 50 copies of this and stick it under your desk. And that way, if somebody shows up and they need it, you just give them the form, they fill it out, and everybody can, you can process the transaction. So that's a good form to be aware of. And then probably one of the more hot button forms is this new one here. Now we highlighted it yellow, as you can see on the website. And this is the form that covers the new release without full payment standard, as we've been referring to it. Some people call it the 15% $60 standard or the reduced fee standard. That one is a more complex way to refer to it. But yeah, so this is that form. It's pretty straightforward, and a lot of the language that is on this form is very mirrored on what the statutory language is. So we didn't really deviate from that too much. We'll see if any adjustments need to be made, which I expect there would be once the new rules have been adopted. But until such time, this is how the form looks. And so again, the authorized or interested person that's appearing to collect the vehicle, they fill out their information. You fill out the vehicle information. There's the attestation part of it with signature, with date, with time. And then the bottom part is for you to fill out, where you can kind of like the drop fee form, where you put your company name in there, your storage lot address, phone number, permit number, and then whoever the individual towing carrier representative who released the vehicle is put in there. And then you can indicate the payment information on the right there. So what the initial amount paid was. So if it's 15% and it's less than $60, you would put that in there. And then whatever the remaining balance is there. And then that's how that form works. Okay. So I think that's most of what I wanted to cover here on the towing webpage. Just backtracking a little bit to the main transportation page. Again, just to kind of show you what it looks like when you go into the rules of transportation section, which we talked about. Again, this is that one singular PDF document which you can download. And again, you can just click into it as well and scroll down, and you can, scroll all the way down to the towing section, which I think is down here. Yeah, it's the 6,500 rules. So it starts on page, whichever page this is, 60, it looks like. But anyway, it's a good document. You can just download it and keep it on your desktop. It's usually a good idea. And then again, the different list of rulemakings is here under annotated rules index. So here's all the previous rulemakings, the respective proceedings that governed the change, and just kind of a quick summary of what was covered as part of those rulemakings. So it's a good place to do that. And then, yeah, the 60/20 reports. It's a lot of good stuff on here. So I would encourage you all to take a little time, if you haven't already, to kind of poke around on the main transportation page, especially on the towing page. And then again, going back to the main PUC website, again, you can watch the hearings and stuff here on the hearings webcast. And then here's the calendar I talked about down here. So you can see different things that are coming up. And you can click into different proceedings. So for example, you got our seminar that we're doing right now here. So you can click on it, more details, all that kind of stuff. So anyway. All right, so we'll go ahead and click out of here. And we'll jump back into the presentation. Give me just 1 second. All right, so we'll go ahead and cycle to where we were. Okay. So we also have this that we wanted to share. So basically, it's an outline of the different things you're going to need as part of the permit application process for towing carriers. So I just wanted you to be aware of what's here. So again, you can submit your application through a paper copy, or you can do it online. Online is preferred. It's the fastest. It allows us to really jump on it once we get it and all of that. It's a lot quicker. So we encourage everybody to apply for their permit online. It's the most efficient way to get it and process it. You're also going to make sure make sure that you have your company information through Secretary of State's office. So your business, whatever it is, whether it's a corporation, an LLC, a sole proprietorship, whatever the case may be, as well as any accompanying trade names. Just make sure you have that documentation available as we are going to ask for it as part of the permit processing. So just be aware that you need that. Moving on to the criminal history background check. So I want to just discuss this just in a little bit more detail, just so people understand kind of how it works. So essentially, you're going to submit your application, and then it goes into a queue where one of our investigators is going to essentially do a background check on any and all principals that are associated with the application. So maybe you have 3 members, or maybe it's just one CEO. Whatever the case is, we use the information from your application to run that background check. So, we're looking in court records and, other databases that we have available to us to kind of see just, what your record looks like. We basically, the disqualifiers, and this is all outlined in statute, specifically under 4010.1 4012. So that's where the statute is, where it covers this, but also in our PUC rule 6504. So it is in the towing rules section. It's like the third or fourth rule in that line. So you can always go there and kind of take a look and see what it says. It is one we're updating based on some statutory changes as part of the big House bill last year. But for the most part, it's mostly staying the same from what it was before the statutory changes. Again, we check all the different principles and basically see what's there. The disqualifiers, just so everybody's aware, and again, this is outlined in the statute, it's outlined in the rules, are all felony level convictions within the previous 5 years. That is an automatic disqualifier. So just be aware that that is, a possibility if you have a record that reflects that. So again, it doesn't matter what level it is. It could be a level 1 felony or a class 1 or class 6. It doesn't matter. If it's a felony level offense, it's a disqualifier. And so you are essentially disqualified for whatever the remaining period is within that 5-year period. So for example, if the conviction was 2 years ago, you would be disqualified right now and for an additional 3 years, if that makes sense. So basically, once you're at the point where that conviction is no longer within that 5-year window from when we're checking, then you're qualified. Now, if we deny you on this basis, you get a denial letter from us on our letterhead outlining, okay, we found this conviction, we're disqualifying you on this basis. We also include the date when you would again be eligible. So we do that so that you can see exactly how much time is left on the disqualification. So just be aware of that. One of the other disqualifiers we can do within that 5-year period is any towing related offenses. So that's a new provision that was put in, which is why we're trying to update the rule, which is any towing related offenses was added in to that statute as a disqualifier based on the House bill from last year, House Bill 2213-14. So they added that as an additional disqualifier on top of the felony convictions. I don't know if we've used that yet because I don't know if we've seen any, but we have seen them before. So different states, for example, have criminal level convictions that are specifically towing related. And so if when we see those, we can use that as a disqualifier as well. In addition, the other thing, excuse me, sorry, let me go back. In addition, they also added a new ability for us to deny permits on what we refer to as a good cause denial. So that's when we're being very judicious in how we're applying that standard, because it is a pretty broad standard, admittedly. But we're being very careful on how we apply it, and we're essentially going through your background, not just criminal related stuff, your entire background, and just seeing if there's anything there that's of concern. Some of it is criminal related. So, for example, if somebody has, a whole bunch of pending active warrants, for example, that may be one we want to use that for. Or also another thing is if we have somebody come in and they apply for a permit, say it's one individual and they're listed as the only partner or the only CEO of the company, and they apply for the permit and they have a felony conviction in the previous 5 years. So again, we disqualify based on what we just talked about earlier. So we issue that letter, and then excuse me, about 2 weeks later, we get another application filed, and it's that person who we disqualified. It's their spouse or their brother-in-law or their employee or something like that. Everything else is exactly the same, but they just essentially scrub that person out. We're usually pretty good at sniffing out when that's what's been done, and it's not appropriate to do that because essentially all you're doing is sidestepping a very clear and definitive statutory mechanism to keep certain individuals out of the towing industry. So please do not do that because, again, first of all, we're pretty good at finding out. And again, trying to sidestep the standard in that way is not appropriate and, again, causes all kinds of problems. So we may use it under such circumstances as well when we learn that that's what's going on. So just be aware of that. But again, the statute is pretty broad, and we can use it for a variety of things. We haven't really too much. I think we've only used it a handful of times since we got it last year, so we're being very careful on how we're using it. But that is something that we now have available to us. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of outline the different things that we're checking. The other thing is, again, it does go into a queue. We get a lot of towing applications in any given month at any given time. So sometimes there is a little bit of a delay in when you've submitted your documentation and when we are able to actually complete that review, just to make sure we can issue you the permit. So please be patient, and please be patient with our staff because they're doing the best they can. They're working as fast as they can. So please be patient with that. We don't mind if you call in, just to get an update. But again, we definitely appreciate your patience because it does take a while to do it sometimes. Okay, moving on along this checklist. So the next item to discuss is the designated agent. So this is something that we require all of our carriers to do, not just towing carriers, but all of our different transportation carriers that we regulate. Basically, what it is you want to designate an individual to be your primary source of contact when it comes to your carrier. So that can be you. It can be, somebody you know and trust. Whoever you want to put down there. Just understand that we always look to that individual as listed in your carrier record first when we're reaching out on a variety of commission business. So, for example, if we're going to be, say, you're subject to a show cause, your insurance has expired, and we're taking steps to revoke your permit on that basis. We're going to contact the designated agent and let them know, hey, this is what's going on business-wise with this carrier permit. So you want to make sure it's somebody that if it's you, we want to make sure we're getting you that information, that you're the source of contact, so we can make sure we get that to you. But also, if it's somebody else that's not you, make sure it's somebody who's going to tell you when they're getting these different, mailings or emails, because that's our first place we send stuff to. So, updates on rulemakings, like upcoming rulemakings that you may want to participate in. We send the alerts to the designated agent. We use it for everything, really. So just make sure it's up to date. It's the right kind of person. It's someone, if it's not you, it's somebody who's going to loop you in when they get a mailing, when they get a phone call. Because again, that's always our primary source of contact when we reach out on a variety of topics. So just make sure it's the right person. Moving on to fees, we do have an annual application fee that's paid. It's currently $150. Based on recent changes to our statute 4010.1111, we may be adjusting that fee in the near future. It's been the same since, I think, 2011, or maybe even before that. So it's been a pretty consistent fee for the last 10 plus years at least. And but again, we finally have the ability to adjust it in the statute. It was previously prohibited by a statutory catch, but now we are able to adjust it. So we may be taking steps to do that in the near future. So just be aware of that. Just want to make sure nobody's surprised by that if when it comes up. Also, towing carriers are subject to the annual motor vehicle stamp fee. I'm sure you're all aware, having previously filed applications before. So that's a $50 stamp per vehicle. So if you have 5 vehicles, you buy 5 stamps and put one on each vehicle. Those can be paid kind of as part of the permitting process, but it can be done by cash, credit card, money order, or check. So just make sure you've done that and that all your vehicles are covered. If one of our investigators comes out and sees you without a stamp, they'll probably cite you for it. So just be aware of that. And then moving on to insurance, and we'll talk quite a bit about this, but we have a little chart here on this checklist which kind of shows you what is or can be applied to specifically a towing permit. So the vehicle liability insurance, which is the Form E coverage, that's what almost all of our carriers are required to have. It's just your general, commercial liability coverage. The rate is $750,000 for vehicles that are over 10,000 GVWR, which I think it's extremely rare to see a towing carrier or a tow truck that doesn't have 10,000 GVWR. So pretty much in every instance, that's going to be the minimum level of insurance that's required. So that's your Form E. Again, all carriers have to have it. Cargo liability is the next one. So that's a Form H or Form 12. And it has to be in an amount sufficient to cover the damage of the towed motor vehicle. So that's essentially mandatory for all towing carriers because that's what you're doing. You're towing cargo. It's vehicles. So that's always going to be required. So almost pretty much no matter what, every towing carrier is going to need a Form E and a Form H. Moving on to garage keepers liability coverage, which is our Form 14. That one is required only if you're providing storage. So for example, if you're a towing carrier and you're doing nothing but straight consensual tows and you don't even have a facility, garage keepers is not going to be required because you're not providing storage. So that's something you want to be aware of when you're applying so that you know how to apply and what coverage, we know what coverage you need. It also has to be in an amount sufficient to cover the damage to the stored motor vehicle, similar to the cargo. And then finally, workers' compensation. And we're going to get into a little bit more detail on this shortly, but just wanted to let you all know that is something that sometimes is a little more complicated. Basically, it's required when you have employees. That's when it's required. So if that is the case, then basically the way it's going to work, and we'll get into it in the subsequent slides because we get into this in a little more detail. But basically what it boils down to is if you have employees, you need to file that workers' compensation policy. It's the Form WC. So you file it just like all the other policies through the underwriters of your insurance company. Or if you have no employees, then you can opt out by filing with the Division of Workers' Comp with the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, CDLE. So when that's done, we're able to check that and just make sure that all the proper paperwork has been filed, and then we can process your application. So again, this checklist just kind of outlines that basic process, what you need for that permit and kind of the different nuances of it. So moving on to insurance, just in general, a couple topics to cover here. So first off, you don't file your insurance. And this is the way it works for all of the carriers we regulate, not just towing, but all the different industries we regulate. You don't file the insurance. The underwriters of the insurance companies file the insurance. And the main reason for that is if somebody, one of the carriers we regulated, comes in with just a copy of, a 5-page commercial policy and gives us a copy and says, hey, see, look, I'm insured. And then we say, oh, okay, and we issue your permit. Well, what's to stop you from then turning around and canceling the policy? And we'd never know. So that's a good reason why we have it set up the way we do, where the underwriters file it, because not only are they required to file the policy, excuse me. Not only are they required to file the policy, they're also required to let us know when the policy is going to be canceled or go expired. So we call it a Form K, and they're required to file that, I believe, 30 days before there's any substantive changes to the policy. So, and again, that kind of gives us the heads up and it gives us the window we need in order to properly address the situation. So typically it involves our show cause process, which is sending a letter out to you or some communication indicating, hey, we just got an alert that your policy is going to be expired or it's, whatever, as of such and such date. That's when we administratively suspend your permit, because at that point you're no longer insured, so you don't meet all the qualifications for holding said permit. And then we move on to the show cause process, which involves essentially going to opening a proceeding, having a hearing where the commission essentially revokes your permit. So anyway, that's the way that works, and that's why it's set up that way, so that we can properly process out the permits that are not maintaining the adequate level of insurance that's necessary per statute and the commission's own rules. So just be aware that that's kind of how that works. As I said before, the Form E and the Form H for towing carriers is always required, regardless of what kind of an operation you have. So just be aware you're going to always need both of those. And then the Form 14, as we discussed, is only required if you're providing storage. So again, a lot of your law enforcement ordered towers and non-consensual towers, PPIs, you're almost always going to have that Form 14, because you're going to be storing vehicles at some point as part of that business model. So just be aware of that. Like I said earlier, the workers' compensation coverage is required if you have employees working for you. And if that is the case, that policy needs to be filed with the PUC, basically the same as all the other forms that need to be filed for your other respective policies. But again, if you don't have employees, you work through that. So basically, you're going to work with CDLE to fill out all the appropriate opt-out paperwork for that requirement, which we're able to then check with them, like through a portal, and see if those disclosures and the paperwork has been properly done and filed. And if that's the case, then that's the trigger we need to then issue your permit, if that's the last thing that's outstanding. So again, you do that through the Division of Workers' Compensation through CDLE. And then you either file the workers' comp policy if that's what you need to do, or you properly opt out. And in both cases, that should be good enough to get your permit, unless there's any other outstanding issues. So that pretty much reaches the end of our presentation. It's actually a little longer than our one on the 30th. I thought this one was going to be a little shorter, but I'm glad we got through a lot of this stuff. As you can see here from this last slide here, it's our public or our contact information for the PUC. You have our main number, which is the 303-894-2000. You can call that at any time. I also have consumer affairs and complaints up here as well. That's 303-894-2070 if you need to reach out to them for whatever reason. My contact information is here as well. My number is 303-894-2848. And then transportation staff. So for a lot of the things we covered today, the different forms, filing applications, insurance, all of that, you'll want to contact our main transportation staff at 303-894-2000 option 4 to get to the transportation unit. And then we have our address there as well, 1560 Broadway, Suite 250 in Denver. If there's a reason you need to come in for an in-person appointment, we can accommodate that. You can do that through our website. Or you can reach out to us and schedule something. So that is available if you need to come in for whatever reason. But we're good at conducting the vast majority of our business over the phone, online. We can help you with pretty much any issues you have that way. I have my number down there, or excuse me, my email down there, nate.riley@state.co.us. If you need to reach out to me for whatever reason. I have Lloyd's email there as well. He's our investigation supervisor. So if you need to reach out to him, lloyd.swint@state.co.us. So that is our slideshow. That is our presentation. Let me go ahead and get this off the screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. And let me just, hold on, let me rearrange my screens a little bit. Okay. So that's the presentation. I hope we covered a lot of things here that are helpful. I hope we've demonstrated how intuitive and how helpful and what all the various resources that are available on our website for you. Covered kind of how the application process works, things you need to have, kind of the different pieces that we need to get from you to properly issue your permit or renew your permit, how the background checks go, all of that. So I think we covered some pretty good things here today. All right, I guess at this time we're ready to open it up for any Q&A that anybody has. We don't have anything else to present, so if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to jump in. Raynette, if you think I missed anything, feel free to jump in as well. But yeah, I think we covered most everything. Did you have something, Ray?
No, I was just saying you did great.
Okay, thank you. Raynette's our supervisor for our transportation customer care unit. So there's not many permits that get through without her stamp of approval. So she kind of covers that entire unit and all the processing of all the applications. So she's a good resource for you to have here at the commission as well. If you have any questions, you can reach out to her or reach out to me and I can pass it along to her. So, all right. So did we have any questions? Sorry, I just saw somebody's hand up. It was Rhodes, I think it was. Did you have a question? You're muted, so you'll have to unmute to speak, but go ahead.
Nope, that was an accident.
Okay, no problem. Did you have any questions about anything or, Okay. All right, any other questions? Obviously if it's related to what we covered today, that would be best, but we're here to answer any questions really. So, if you have anything, even though it might not be completely related to the different topics and substance that we covered today, that's okay. We'll still try to answer as best we can. Yes, Waltz Towing, go ahead.
Hello, sir. It is unrelated to today's meeting. It was pretty straightforward, your presentation today. Thank you for that.
Okay, well, yeah, we hope you got something out of it. Go ahead.
Very much so. So the difference commercial, residential, private property impounds, where do things like properties such as hotels, temporary dwellings, right? So commercial, residential, not places with leases, but primarily hotels. That's really the biggest one, but I'm sure there's some others that fall under that category as well.
Sure. Yeah, and we've had that come up a little bit over, the past, how long has it been? August, September, October, like 16 or so months or so since the passing of HB 2213-14. I don't know that that's a fully settled issue yet. I know I've gotten some calls about that. What we look at, we'd like to think that in general, mostly that whole residential versus commercial PPI split is going to be pretty apparent in most cases, but we know not all. And we have already experienced some issues where we're dealing with properties that are mixed use. For example, it could be a parking structure that has 5 levels and the top 4 levels are clearly residential, so we treat them that way. But that first level is hybrid. So it's like, between these hours and these hours, it's residential overflow from the top four floors. But during this time period and this time period, it services the local businesses. So we accommodate for all of that. We're checking things like how the properties are zoned and things of that nature. So we in general try to use every piece of information we have available to make those determinations. But it is still kind of a newer requirement, so we're still in a certain way feeling it out to a certain extent. So, but yeah, that would be my response to that. Is I don't know if it's a definitive answer, and again, it's going to be dependent on exactly what kind of a property it is and how it's being used and all of that. It could potentially fall into either category. It just depends on what the exact situation is. It would be my response.
Okay, so still kind of uncharted waters, if you will. Answer still to come.
Well, I think what I'd say is that at present, we're still, especially in these kind of more outlier situations, we're really handling them on a case-by-case basis. So when we get complaints where a particular property is at issue, that's when we're sorting through it and we're digging as deep as we can to figure out exactly how we should treat that property as it pertains to the new standards that were passed last year.
Copy. So, I mean, the two main ones that I'm seeing is hotels and Airbnbs, places that are residential properties as far as the Airbnbs goes. Typically, sometimes they're more of a commercial setting, but typically they're single homes, sometimes multi-use, as you said, but with daily rents, nightly rents, etc. So commercially rented, if you will, but residential nonetheless.
Sure. Yeah, and I would say, Airbnbs, I think is kind of a little bit of a different animal. And I'd be more inclined to think that's swinging more towards residential than commercial. But I get your point on hotels, especially the more extended stay places. Like I think like a Hyatt Regency is probably going to fall well into the commercial category. But when we're talking about some of those, smaller, not corporate chain style extended stay places, that's I think where things are still a little murky right now.
Okay. I appreciate the information, sir. Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? About 2:00, so we've been going for about an hour. But yeah, still available for any questions y'all have. And again, just kind of do a little bit of wrap up here. Again, the last seminar that we had was on October 30th. We covered rules, rulemaking process, legislative process, statutory changes, how the commission responds to statutory changes, all of that. We covered that, and had a pretty decent Q&A afterwards as well. That was my understanding is that was recorded, and we're planning to put it up on the website. Same thing today. I believe we're planning to have this be recorded and put up on the website as well. And then again, our next seminar is going to be 3 weeks from today, on the 8th, which is also a Friday. Same start time, which is 1 p.m. And the topics that will be covered in that last and final seminar is complaints, investigations, and enforcement. As I mentioned earlier, we may have a DOR rep coming in to participate in that. Not 100% on that, but it's looking like that's a possibility. So just be aware of that. That I think would add to it. I think complaints, investigations, and enforcement is where we have the most overlap with DOR as it pertains to the towing industry. So that probably is going to be the best one for them to potentially attend. So that's why we have it set up that way. But again, yeah, we hope everybody can attend that seminar as well. 3 weeks from today, December 8th, 1 p.m. And you all should have a link. There should also be a link, I think probably in the calendar as well. And we're streaming as well. It's not as easy to participate through the stream, but you can, if all you want to do is watch and you don't want to ask questions or anything, you can always go to, again, the main PUC website and scroll down to hearings webcast, and then it'll be there available for you to watch live. And then usually afterwards, you can click on it. If you missed it, you can go in there and see it there. And again, we'll record that one too, so it'll be on the website eventually anyway. All right, let's see. I think it's probably going to be, oh, I just pulled up the chat. Walt, he said, thanks for your time. Appreciate that. All right, last call for any questions before we wrap things up. Any questions at all? You can raise your hand, or you can just unmute and jump right in, whatever you like. Okay. Well, it's about 2:05, so we went just a little over an hour. Again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for being proactive in your regulation. It helps out immensely. Just being willing to participate in events like this and hear us, even if we're just talking to you and covering fairly basic requirements and expectations of our regulated industries. It's still really important, and it's something I always will encourage our regulated entities to do is be proactive, read the rules, go through the website, call us with questions, email us with questions. We're happy to discuss this stuff with you. So, but again, stuff like this, events we're holding where we're covering this stuff and going into some of it in detail to help you, to help us, to help the whole system is really beneficial. And I really applaud all of you for participating today. Even if you didn't say anything, even if you're just here to listen or watch, that's fine. That's more than a lot of people do. So we really appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll go ahead and wrap it for today. But again, remember our next one, December 8th, Friday, 1 p.m. We did send out all the links to all 3 of these seminars to everybody, so you should have those. If you're here today, you should have the next one. So we will go ahead and wrap for today and plan to see everybody on December 8th. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.